Welcome to today's episode of Round Robin. We are going to spend some time today talking about the Civil War with the new director of the Hampton History Museum. Her name is Luci Cochran. Welcome, Luci. Glad to have you here.
Thanks, Robin.
Now, I mentioned that you were new, and you are actually pretty darn new to the city. How long have you been here?
Just through November, so just a few short months.
But you have a background in museums.
I do. Well, I actually came directly from the Peninsula Fine Arts Center in Newport News, which was an arts center, but we did do very similar work. And I've worked in nonprofits for over 20 years. So that's where my love is, you know, bringing the community together through culture and art. And I was so excited when this opportunity arose because I believe history has such a wonderful and powerful way to bring us together. It's really what we are. Our memories are what makes us as individuals. And our history as a community is really what makes us a community. It brings us together and kind of creates an identity for us.
Well, especially in Hampton, where we're very proud of the 400 plus years and the continuous English speaking. But really, of course, Hampton's history goes back well before that. It's just that's when the English settlers arrived.
Exactly. That's when actually the city was established. But obviously there's hundreds and hundreds of years of history well before that. We really have a very diverse culture here that started long ago and it continues to be diverse today. And that's one of the things that the History Museum is focusing on, that diversity, that wonderful eclectic mix we have here in a city, yet these wonderful stories and kind of celebrating the personal stories that everyone has, as well as how those stories fit into the regional picture as well as the national picture. Hampton is so amazing in that so many things that happened here affected the national stage. And so we're really proud of that. In a way, by telling Hampton's history, we're telling the country's history.
Okay, and in addition to the normal exhibit, the regular exhibits you have at the History Museum, you have a special traveling exhibit now that does focus on Civil War, which I think is a period that fascinates so many people.
Well, and really affected our country so dramatically. The show, I mean, this exhibition is so unique. We are getting it from the Virginia Historical Society. They created this exhibition for the sesquicentennial of the Civil War. And for us, it so much reflects the dramatic impact Hampton had, once again, on the world stage, as I mentioned earlier. And it's a wonderful exhibition that really explores, once again, that thread of the different people that were affected and really brings to light not history, when you think about it, as answers. You know, a lot of people think, well, I've got to remember when the Civil War started and when
the way
it
you
ended.
learn history in grade school.
You know,
maybe.
It's not about dates. It's about the questions that history brings to mind. Why did the Civil War happen? Why one side won over the other? You know, there were a lot of things. A lot of people, for example, don't know that actually viruses and bacteria killed more soldiers in the Civil War than actual fighting. I think it was double. Over 400,000 soldiers were killed by viruses and illness versus over 200,000 from actual wounds. So those kind of things we don't realize, and actually the things that happen in war often change your culture. And the Civil War was such a pivotal event. It really affected Hampton dramatically. It affected the state of Virginia. So many things that happened in the Civil War happened in Virginia. So this is that story. It opens actually February 25th, and it'll be here for about 4 months. It ends in late June. But this is something anyone who's interested in history, in Hampton history, and also in those big issues that were involved in the Civil War that actually still have threads and affect us today. If you're interested in that kind of thing, you need to come and see this exhibition. It's wonderful. We actually have an upstairs exhibition that changes, and that's where it'll be upstairs. So after you see the permanent collections that are downstairs that tell the Hampton history from the time of the Native Americans all the way to the present, after you see that, then we want you to come up and see this new show. And it's called The American Turning Point, the Civil War, and it's actually part one of a two-part thing that they've created. And actually, this is called Waging War. The second part will be coming at the end of the year to the Hampton History Museum, and that's about surviving war. So it's very comprehensive.
So the permanent exhibit has the story of Confederates burning Hampton as they left, and what that was like for the city and the rebuilding.
Yes, it does have a portion of that.
And I hope a lot of people have already seen that. So what would I see if I go upstairs to this, this exhibit through June?
It really is very multimedia. It's not your typical exhibition where you're just looking at artifacts and reading about those artifacts. It's multimedia. There's actually even a space in the area where you actually are surrounded by a 3D panorama. You hear the sounds of war, and you actually feel like you're in the battle. So you see a lot of artifacts that illustrate those key questions I mentioned earlier and issues. For example, we have a Springfield rifle in the exhibition. You know, war often changes technology. And actually, one reason so many people died in the Civil War is that it was the first introduction of rifle technology before they were using muskets that were really not very accurate. Then they had these new rifles that were very accurate, and that's why so many people died. So those kind of things are illustrated through actual real artifacts that you see. And then there are also recreations of actual images. You know, of course, that was when photography really started being used. Mm-hmm. So you have these wonderful images, actual artifacts, and then these, as I said, multimedia presentations that really make you not only understand, but also have that feeling of what happened, and then we explore why it happened as well. So it's a wonderful exhibition. There's so much to see. It's almost overwhelming because you have so much to look at, so much to experience. You really will walk away from the exhibition with you know, a different mindset.
Interesting. So you've seen this already, or you're in the process of installing it?
Yes, we are. We're actually doing the final touches. We're testing all the technology because there is a lot of technology being used. The Virginia Historical Society did a great job at really taking advantage of new technology. And so not only do we have those things in place, we're installing the final artifacts. These are, of course, obviously priceless artifacts. Mm-hmm. We're protecting and making sure it's done appropriately. So that's a slow process that we make sure everything's done appropriately. And then we do the final touches like lighting next week, and then we open next Saturday beginning at 10 a.m.
Okay. I would imagine that the technology piece in particular, the multimedia, is almost needed for today's younger generation. I mean, I think people my age are used to going to museums and reading what's on the wall and taking their time, but for my kids, for example, is something that surrounds them or that really grabs their attention would almost be necessary for them to be able to make it through an exhibit.
You're exactly right. Intuitively, we kind of all know that because of the way we live our lives now. And actually, that's going to be a big push, not only for this exhibition, but for the museum moving forward, because we feel how people learn, we know this, educators all know this, that you learn by having people do things, and you learn by immersing them in something and using all the senses, because we also know people learn differently. Mm-hmm. I, for example, am a visual learner. I have to see things sometimes before it really clicks for me. Other people are kinetic learners. They have to get up and move, or nothing sinks in. So for us, it's about making sure we're taking full advantage of what we know. So it's not a passive experience, it's immersive or experiential, which are all these terms you use in education. But for us, those are important because we don't want it to be a passive experience. We want people to walk out really understanding what they've seen and not just, as you said, going in, looking and reading. And that is what's so special about this exhibition. And of course, as I said, that's something you're going to see more and more of at the museum. So not only is this new, and this will stay for a couple of months, but we'll be doing additional things. We're going to be doing a lot of new things throughout the next couple of months, and actually the next couple of years.
That sounds exciting. And when you do that and you realize you're doing it for the younger generation, then it also affects everybody else too. Like you said, you were personally moved by that feeling of being in battle that you really can only get with that multimedia experience.
Yeah.
So people have through June to be able to go view this. And is there a charge or a fee?
There is. Normally to come into the museum for adults, it's about $5. We do have special discounts, the typical things like AAA, active military. And then there's a small charge, about $3 for students, and then really young children are free. But of course, what you can do is become a member of the museum. It's a wonderful way to support these long-term projects we're doing and bringing in these kind of exhibitions. It's really inexpensive. And then you can come anytime, as often as you like. Your children can come as often as you like. So we encourage people to join. Then you also know what's going on, because we'll be sending information out to you regularly. But there is a small fee, not an extra fee. You'll get to see everything.
It's included in everything in the main price of the museum. Yes. And you have group discounts also. I mean, I know I used to bring my Cub Scouts every year to the museum to do a different, activity.
If you do a group of 10 or more, it's only $3 a person. And of course, we also have wonderful docents that really can give you that personal touch if you're interested.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming today. And we're very excited to have you in Hampton and have a real fresh, new look at the History Museum and how to tell Hampton's story in a variety of ways at the museum and in other locations and out into the community. So we talk about where we came from and how that affects where we're going.
That's exactly right. Thank you so much, Robin.
Well, thank you, Lucy, for coming by today. And thank you. That concludes another episode of Round Robin. We hope you'll stay tuned for more. Thank you.